This is your spiritual game plan, and I'm your host, Sherry Fletcher. Change. It happens to all of us. You've invested your time and energy into an important role, sometimes for years. Then suddenly it's time for you to move on. Maybe you've worked hard on a dream, and now your path is taking a new turn, but the dream isn't going with you. Perhaps you've raised your kids and they've moved on, but now your empty nest is filled with parent care. Or maybe you're in the middle of diaper changes and laundry piles. If you find yourself asking questions like, where do I fit in anymore? Am I even relevant? How do I find my purpose now? You are in the right place. This is the show for women in a season of transition. I believe that while your roles in life will change, your purpose is eternal. I'm here to help you understand just how intentionally you were created by a creator with a game plan. Through interviews and inspirational guests, we'll discover ways to help you unlock the purpose God's placed in you, develop a game plan for your life's calling, and embrace the intentional masterpiece you were created to be. Today, I will be speaking with Jill Savage. Jill is an author and a speaker who is passionate about relationships. She is the founder of Hearts at Home, a national organization that has served moms for 24 years. And Jill now speaks to thousands of men and women each year about their priorities, their passion, and their purpose. Today is part 1 of a 2-part series on the 6 things that we as empty nest parents need to let go of. No matter what season of parenting you're in, these next 2 episodes can serve as both a strategy for those who are new to empty nest or season, or as a game plan for those who have yet to empty theirs. I'd like to thank you, Jill, for joining me this afternoon. How are you doing?
Good.
Thank you. Where are you joining me from?
I live in Normal, Illinois.
Normal.
Did you even know there was such a place?
That's kind of exciting.
It's crazy. It really is. My kids went to normal schools and we go to a normal church and we have a lot of fun with that.
That is awesome. I did not even know that was around. Well, I first heard about you when I was taking a class with Kathy Lick on platform and branding, and you were a special guest one evening for us on that. And so since then, I've followed you on social media, and then now I'm listening to your podcast. And so before we get started in on your message, I would love if you would share a little bit about yourself and your family and how God has used your ministry this year.
Oh, well, let's see. I have been married. My husband and I like to say that we've been married 27 wonderful years, and we just celebrated our 37th wedding anniversary. So it wasn't that there were 10 bad years, but marriage is up and down. And it has been challenging for us at times. But my husband and I are empty nesters, but we have 5 grown children, and 3 of those are married. And we have 7 grandchildren. So we are astonished at the season of life that we're in, and we're embracing it to the fullest. My husband was a pastor for 20 years, and then he left pastoring. He owned a construction business for the last 10 years. And then just in the last 2 to 3 years, we've started to do more and more marriage ministry. We do a lot of marriage coaching. So he's actually leaving the construction world, and we're doing ministry together more and more online. And that's really probably been the biggest thing that has happened over the last year is we've, when the quarantine started, we lost 14 speaking engagements. And, but we quickly began to go, okay, what can we do that we can still reach people? A lot of those were marriage conferences that weren't able to happen. And so we really pivoted to a lot of online resources. We pivoted to an online marriage conference. We call it the No More Perfect Marriages Conference. And we thought it was Plan B. Here's what's really interesting. We thought this was Plan B. And then we did the first conference online, and the men were so engaged. the men were asking questions, they were cracking jokes, and we kind of got done with that and looked at each other and went, I think this might be plan A. So it's been
Awesome.
really interesting, but it's been exciting too.
That is exciting. I love that. I love hearing that your plan B was God's plan A. That's
Mm-hmm.
really good.
Yep.
I like to have some fun questions. And so I know that you're a peanut butter lover.
I
And
am.
I am a peanut butter lover. Peanut butter makes everything better. But I'm wondering, what is the strangest combination you've ever done with peanut butter?
That's funny. I mean, I could put peanut butter on anything, but I don't know if this is strange, but I grew up, my father also loved peanut butter. And I grew up, we made something called peanut butter stuff. That's what he always called it, peanut butter stuff. And peanut butter stuff was peanut butter mixed with pancake syrup, maple syrup. And it is really good.
Okay, I do like that.
Yeah, it is really good. And so we would make peanut butter stuff, and then we'd, put it on toast or put it on bananas or whatever. Just eat it. I don't need to put peanut butter on anything. Just give me a spoon.
Me too. Yeah. I love peanut butter and hot syrup on my pancakes, but I've never mixed it up and just had the peanut butter syrup combo. That
You should try it.
I will be trying that. My strangest one, and you need to try it, is peanut butter pizza.
Ooh, how did you do that? Was
the
peanut butter was instead of the sauce?
No, you make the crust or the dough,
Okay.
and then put peanut butter down as a single layer, and then build it normally. Tomato sauce, cheese. I know. I first heard about it and I was like, okay, that's where I'm going to stop on the peanut butter. And I tasted it and I was like, no way, this is awesome.
That's great.
So you'll have to try it and let me know.
Okay.
So I do ask one same question of every guest, and that is, if you look back in your life, how far back could you go to see the very purpose that you were living out today and who you have always been?
Oh my goodness. That is a great question. Probably high school for me. I remember the denomination I grew up in had a teen devotional that they published. And I remember submitting like a devotional or a story for it, and it getting published, and just loving bringing hope and help to others. And that's really what I do now. So probably back then, I was starting to live that out. I didn't understand it. I had no idea what God was going to do. Obviously, none of us do, but I would say probably in high school.
I love that. I love hearing different people's story of when, the purpose they're living out today, where it's always been part of who they are. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
So you wrote a book called Empty Nest, Full Life. And whether you're watching your kids drive off or you yourself are driving off, it's hard to leave. And so As we get started, how do we go from a full house to a full life? And what prompted you to write that book?
Yeah. Well, you know what I think is so hard for mamas is we have devoted 20 years to each kid. Okay. And in my case, there was a 13-year time span from my oldest to my youngest. So we're talking almost 35 years that I have devoted to raising children. And that is a long time. And that is really hard to leave behind when it's kind of, this is what I do. This is what I know. And so I found myself struggling with that transition. I found myself going, I'm not quite sure what to do with myself, really missing there were okay, let's be honest. There are so many parts of motherhood that I'm glad I don't have to deal with anymore,
Yes,
right?
yeah, for sure.
But But there are so many parts that I do miss.
I know.
I miss the full house when the kids would have their friends over,
Yeah, the
and
noises.
the noise, yeah, all of that. And um, so, I was trying to sort through what part is grief, what part is identity, what part is a new adventure. And as I was trying to sort through that, ultimately, God ended up taking me to the book of Ecclesiastes. And he took me to the section in Ecclesiastes that talks about there's a time for everything. And I was reading it one day just in my devotional, uh and it was in the Message version. And in the Message version, it happens to read, there's a time to let go and a time to hold on.
Mm.
And all of a sudden I just kind of went, oh my gosh, like that is a word for me right now, because I'm definitely in the letting go process. But Lord, what am I holding on to? I don't know what that process looks like. So I just began to journey through that personally. And I then identified, 6 things that every empty nest mom needs to let go of. And then an additional group of things that every empty nest mom needs to hold on to. And really bigger than moms. I've had plenty of dads that have read the book and they're like, this applies to us too. So I had a
Wow.
female reader in mind, but it applies to moms and dads.
It so does. Absolutely. Well, I was listening to that podcast that you published, and you walk, like you said, you walk your listener through 6 things that empty
Mm-hmm.
nest parents need to let go of. And this is not only great information for current empty nest parents, but my podcast is about game planning. And
Yep.
it's awesome information for parents who are still right in the thick of it. It helps them, think ahead and come up with a game plan that would make it easier for them when that time does come. And I'm pretty new to empty nest. I was planning to be in my 2nd year this year when COVID hit. And I went from, having no kids at home to having 2 of my 3 come back. And then one of my sons had his best friend living with us all summer. And, I had arranged my schedule. My podcast was just launching, and I had lined up some speaking events before COVID. And I was really excited for this flexibility. And then they come home, and it was easy for us to just fall back into the same roles, fall back into the same expectations. And that wasn't really what my kids, how they were seeing their role as what I call an oxymoron, adult children. And so the first thing that you talk about is the letting go of those expectations. So what advice can you give me and my listeners, but me, now that, I'm transitioning, they're leaving again, but I'm still another transition. And what are other expectations that I just need to let go of?
Yeah. And some of these are the ones that they really catch us off guard. So one of them is to let go of the expectation of knowing things. Okay. Things that you used to know because these kids lived under your roof. I remember the first time my son went off to college and then he came home on a break and he had facial hair. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. What is this stuff? Now, had he been living at home and decided he was going to do No Shave November, I would have known that, but I didn't know it. And we'd only had phone calls. We hadn't had FaceTime. So I just hadn't seen it. And so I had this funny feeling of like, I feel left out. And so, but I realized this is the way it's going to be from here on out. He is making his own decisions. He is living his own life. And I will no longer intimately know the day-to-day stuff that happens. And so I had to change my expectation of that.
Good.
So that would be one. Another is let go of expecting their priorities to be the same as yours. And this is hard because
Really?
because we want to play the I didn't raise you that way card, right? And you didn't. Maybe their priorities, maybe they're not walking with the Lord and church is no longer a priority for them. And that breaks your heart. And so you've got to allow them to walk that journey, and it's got to be their own. And so, their priorities for family, okay? Let's say the holidays are coming up. And, of course, you want to do all the holiday traditions that always have been there, but suddenly they have a significant other and their priorities become different than the family priorities. So we really have to let go of that. And then I would say a third one that would probably be pretty important is to let go of the expectation that they will communicate at the same pace that you want to communicate with. And honestly, this is unique to each kid.
Yeah.
Like, I have 5 children and they all communicate to me at different paces. I hear from one of my daughters almost daily. I hear from one of my other daughters a couple of times a week. And my boys, that's a, one of them I do hear from probably 2 or 3 times a week. One lives in Australia, so I hear from him a couple, once every couple of weeks. So we just, what I've had to learn is that I can let them know the pace I'd like to communicate at, or I can initiate the pace I'd like to communicate at. But if it doesn't match theirs, then we're going to have to find something in the middle, or I just need to let go of the expectation that there should be any particular pace. It's got to be just what's best for that particular relationship.
I love that. Those are really, really good. I needed to hear that. Okay, this next one, I'm thinking I should just say what it is and then be quiet, because if I keep talking, you're going to find out that I have a lot of opinions. And so this, if my kids are listening, they're going, that's an understatement. But, it like you said, it's so hard to go from being responsible for my family and making a majority of the decisions, and then also being referred to for most everything they need, then going to keeping my opinions to myself. But I can tell you, as much as I love my parents, I don't really always desire their opinions. So it helped me, when you said that, it helped me go understand that I need to know the difference from they're sharing their opinion, they're not seeking mine.
Yes.
And so what's a good balance, as when do we share, when do we not share, how do we know what to do in that situation?
You only share when you're asked to share.
Oh.
And that is really hard. It really is, because like you said, hey, I got 20 years of leveraging my opinion into your life. That's part of being a parent. It really is, right? And so I've got this, number one, I have this habit of doing that. But now really what hopefully has happened is that I have poured wisdom, I have poured experience into you, and now you get to make those own decisions, and you're going to have opinions, and those opinions may be different than mine would be. And man, it is hard. This is where in the book I introduce a concept I call pray, don't say.
Ooh, that's good.
And that is just you can preach that puppy to yourself all day long. And you probably, yeah. And it really does help though. Pray, don't say. And I will even say that to myself in my head. Like I'll have one of my kids right in front of me, or I'll be talking to him on the phone and I'll want to leverage it. And then I'll be like, Jill, pray, don't say, just wait. Now, if they ask, because sometimes they will, like I'm thinking about, we're thinking about buying a new house, or we're thinking about this, or we're thinking about that. Then, they'll say, what do you think? Or they'll, like our son last night sent us a house they're looking at, and he sent us, what do you think? And so then offer all the opinions. Hey, that looks great. Or have you considered this? That's fine. He asked. So okay. I'll certainly insert and let him know some of my thoughts. But if they don't ask, which most of the time they don't. And here's the other thing, that when that happens is we're used to using our voice in their life. I think now as they become adults and the older they get, and even for mamas that have teenagers, I think as they enter the teen years, we need to do two things. We need to use our ears far more than our mouth. We just really need to learn how to listen well, to listen with empathy, to stop trying to fix and maybe feel right alongside of them. And then the second thing is to ask more questions. Jesus was a master question asker. I mean, you want to know how to do that. Read the Bible, read about his life. He was so good. He knew the answers. He knew the answers to their questions. He knew where he wanted them to go. Yet, what he did is he asked questions to help them get to that place. And see, what we want to do is we want to shortcut that and be like, okay, just let me tell you what to do, because, you know, I've been there and I'm ahead of you and I don't want you to make the same mistakes. You know, that's where we really have to, that's why pray, don't say is so important, because it's going to be far more effective when they can get to the answers on their own.
Yeah, I need you to make a really pretty plaque that says pray, don't say, so I could put it in my den. I'm not really kidding, but so you kind of touched on this next one, but I have to say, I would comfortably say that I think this next one, it could be a trigger word. And I think that it could even be one of the biggest problem causers in our children's life. Like you said, especially if they have a relationship with someone else. So I'm going to say the word tradition.
Yeah.
You know, even saying that, sometimes my chest can get heavy. I grew up in a home that was built around traditions, and I like them to a degree, but I didn't want to plan my life, my marriage, or my family around them. And even without being told, I knew that if I was not going to carry through on a tradition, that I would be letting someone down. And did you hear that?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so we'll start over with the next one. Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one I'm going to say, I think, is a trigger word for many people. And I would comfortably say that it's probably one of the biggest problems in our children's lives, especially if they're in a relationship with someone. So I'm going to say that word, it's tradition. And my chest will sometimes get heavy when I say that, but I grew up in a home that it was built around traditions, and I like them to a degree. I see the importance of them, but I didn't want to plan my life and my marriage and my family around them. And even without being told, I know that if I'm not going to be able to meet someone's traditional obligation, that I'm letting them down. But in your podcast, I loved your suggestion about tradition and how it can still be incorporated in a different way. And you talk about separating the what from the when, and it's so liberating. So I'd love it if you share that concept with my listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what's, I think, particularly as our kids get older, as they start to have other people in their lives, as they maybe marry and leave, and now they have another family that they also have obligation to, or I hate the word obligation, that they also want to include in the holiday season or whatever. So with all of that, what begins to happen is it's really important for us to separate the what from the when. First, with the what, find out if it really, okay, you may have done the same thing on Christmas Eve for the last 25 years, but find out if it means anything to anyone. You know, if that didn't happen, I mean, one of the most beautiful things that we can do as we head into like a holiday season or even a birthday season, you know, is to say, okay, usually we've done these things. If we didn't, which one would you miss? You know, what would you miss the most? And it's amazing. So I encourage empty nest parents to do a holiday audit, a tradition audit, where you literally talk through, you know, like there's certain foods we always make in the holidays. And you literally say to your kids, usually I make this and this and this and this. If I didn't make one of these, which one would you miss the least? That's how you do an audit. Same thing with Christmas Eve or some sort of way that you do traditions. So so doing an audit can be very, very helpful. Then you can determine which whats are important and which ones you might just let go because they served a time for a season, but they may not be as applicable anymore. And you got to think about this. As your kids become adults and they have a new family, they're making their own traditions. Mm-hmm. So if you don't learn how to let go of traditions, then you're going to be imposing tradition overload on your adult kids because you want them. So sometimes what we want to do is make our own new traditions, like my husband and I, used to, New Year's Eve was a family gathering. And now it's just something that my husband and I do, just the two of us. And we've created a new tradition for that because it serves us better in the season of life we are. So once we determine the whats and the whats that are important, and yes, it can be important to you, but if you're the only one it's important to, you may need to grieve that transition and replace it with a new tradition that you can value as well. And then we separate that from the wins. And so the win is like one of the stories I often share is one Thanksgiving. This was probably 5-6 years ago. My husband and I spent Thanksgiving with not a single one of our kids, not a one. And one of our daughters and her husband, they alternate holidays, and that happened to be the holiday they would be, at the in-laws. And then another daughter, or our son he was in Los Angeles. He was too far away. Another son was actually kind of alienated from the family. We have an adopted son that has had a lot of mental health issues. He wasn't around. And then we had our two kids that were available, but one is married and also had another side of the family to go to. And the other one was engaged and had the other side of the family to go to. So Mark and I talked about it and we said, you know what if we just release our kids from Thanksgiving? We just release them. And both of us were like, you know what? I think that would probably be the kindest thing to do, because we remembered what it was like to feel like you needed to be in two different sides of the family on the same day. I mean, it's just not enjoyable. No. So we did. We said, you know what, guys, we're going to just release you from anything on Thanksgiving Day. The Saturday after Thanksgiving, we're going to have pizza. And if you'd like to come over, please do. And we'll do a Thanksgiving gathering with whoever is around. And, I think we had 3 of the 5 that came for the pizza gathering. And was that odd? It was really odd. And was it important? I think it absolutely was.
I love that. Of course, now you can do peanut butter pizza. But
good.
That's such a gift. That is such a gift to be able to do that.
I have a blog post I wrote several years ago, and it's titled, "Give Your Kids the Gift of Holiday Freedom." And you want to give them a gift that is a beautiful gift. It's not going to be wrapped in red and green, but they're going to really appreciate it if you release them from obligation.
I love that. We're going to make this a 2-part because we're running out of time and you have 3 more to go. And I want to make sure that people come back and listen to those 3. And so I want to thank you for taking this time to go over those. Can you just recap the first 3 that we've just talked about?
Yeah, we need to let go of expectations. We need to let go of opinions, and we need to let go of traditions.
That is awesome. Thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to talking with you next week on part 2.
Sounds good.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of 6 things every empty nest parent needs to let go of with Jill Savage. As a parent, letting go is hard. We've served in a role of advisor, protector, and provider for 18 years, and there are a lot of emotions and expectations wrapped up in that role. I hope that you were able to take a sigh of relief knowing that you are not alone. Jill's message not only gave us the tools that we need, but also a sympathetic shoulder that we all want. If this message blessed you and you know another parent who would be blessed by it, please share it. I'd also be very grateful if you would subscribe so that you do not miss other great guests. If this is your first time in listening to Your Spiritual Game Plan, be sure to go back and listen to other episodes and then rate it, leave an honest review, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to join us next week for part 2 of 6 things every parent needs to let go of with Jill Savage.